The maid Isabella brings a tray with cake and reminds Alicia that she should have a snack. Alicia is sitting at her desk contemplating the food shortage caused by the war. While Isabella comforts her, Alicia is shown. The only daughter of the Emperor of the Eastern Empire, despite her young age of 9 years, Isabella tries to console Alicia, reminding her that His Majesty is proud of her and will definitely share the victory with her. Alicia solemnly remembers her full name. Alicia de Rebecir, as the only one that truly belonged to her, the war scene shows an imposing emperor who started the war when Alicia was 6 years old, and that has already lasted 3 years. Isabella assures Alicia that His Majesty will return victorious from the war. Isabella makes a promise to protect Alicia until the end, which makes the girl feel grateful. Alicia reflects that if she had magic, she would end this war herself. A magical witch of the White Knight appears who has the power to grant people's wishes. Alicia realizes that she is the witch of the White Knight. The legend says that sincere wishes made on a full moon night come true. People came to her to ask her to fulfill their precious wishes. Alicia remembers being powerful and making her own wishes come true. For unknown reasons, one day she opened her eyes in another world after losing her powers. Alicia was reborn as a girl who lost her mother at birth. The Emperor looks at her from the balcony, perhaps blaming her for the death of his wife. Alicia realizes that the Emperor abandoned her in the princess's palace, leaving her alone. She spent 9 years locked in her chambers and never saw her father. Her nanny Isabella was the only one who showed her love and care. Isabella says with a kind smile that it is raining very hard. She carefully covers Alicia and warns her not to catch a cold. In that weather, Alicia is sitting wrapped in a blanket and looks out the window with surprise. Isabella, looking at the rain outside the window, asks Alicia when she thinks the war will end, and she answers that she does not know. An excited man runs into the room and calls Alicia. Isabella asks indignantly why this man broke into the princess's palace without permission. The man reports with alarm that His Majesty, the Emperor, has fallen in battle. Alicia realizes that at 9 years old she was orphaned. The girl feels that the strength she had lost before returns to her. Everyone will know that despite the losses, her country won the war. Alicia, wrapped in a blanket, asks her interlocutor his name after mentioning the Emperor's last battle. The man in armor calls himself Shubal and Sil and apologizes to Her Highness. Alicia clarifies that he is from the 5th Night Division, then says something was lost and leaves quickly. Shubal asks, confused, what exactly she means. Alicia sternly remembers that one must not enter the princess's room without permission, no matter how urgent it is, and condemns that behavior. Shubal, frightened, apologizes, and Alicia points out that her position as princess does not justify negligence. Alicia reflects that after the Emperor's death he had no other children and no one was designated as his heir. Isabel runs after Alicia and asks where she's going, and Alicia thinks about her own right to become empress. A man in the council chamber declares loudly that a new heir must be found for the empire. The second advisor argues that the heir must be one of the surviving descendants from the collateral branches of the family. During a debate in the council, a member insists that the emperor killed all his blood relatives after ascending to the throne, leaving the others unsure of what to do next. Suddenly, a powerful and energetic attack bursts into the room, causing shock and panic among those present. The attack quickly reaches the center of the room, startling the council members, and Alicia's figure appears through the whirlwind. Alicia walks confidently toward the council, surrounded by magic and smiling, making it clear she is ready for change. The councilors are shocked and ask who has dared to take the throne of His Majesty. One of the advisors begins to guess. 2, pointing at the silver hair of the unknown figure. Everyone compares her hair and red eyes with the features of the Emperor and notices the similarities. Suddenly the council realizes that Princess Alicia is standing before them. Alicia asks indifferently why they are surprised and wonders what the problem is. One of the outraged nobles pounds the table with his fist, declaring that a woman on the throne is unacceptable, and doubts the princess's ability, who has always been locked away in the palace, to become empress. Alicia looks at the advisor and asks coldly what family he is from. She repeats her question confidently, demanding to know the advisor's name. The councilors are amazed by the strength of the 9-year-old girl, and the Marquis of the Sea from the Paran family admits his own name. Alicia reproaches the Marquis for his narrow-mindedness and scolds the ministers for their limited ability to govern the country. Some of the advisors consider that Alicia's character reminds them of the late emperor, and she herself mockingly hints that her isolation does not make her a bloodline stranger to the dynasty, and asks if they are looking for a controllable empress. The Marquis justifies himself, denying such intentions with embarrassment. One of the councillors wonders if the entire assembly has succumbed to the pressure of a 9-year-old girl. Considering the rest desperate, Arnold Herdev from the Duke of Herdev's family stands up and formally greets Alicia. Recognizing Her Highness, he states that everyone cares about one thing only: Alicia's abilities as a candidate for the throne. The council emphasizes that the imperial throne demands competence and that it is not wise to pass the crown to a princess who has not proven her worth due to the ongoing war. Many regions of the empire have suffered greatly, and someone is needed to resolve these problems as soon as possible. Alicia clarifies that it is about the qualifications of the empress. The Duke asks her if she can prove that she is worthy to become empress. Alicia demonstrates her magical powers, creating a bright flash. She teleports one of the advisors, saying that he will see everything for himself and tell the others. The advisors are amazed as they discuss the impossibility of instant teleportation and skills of this level without magic circles. Some compare her to the emperor, who had reached the fencing level at her age, marveling at the similarity. The scene shifts to a border town, of the Eastern Empire, where Alicia arrives, she teleports along with the advisor and lands. On the street impressing those around her, Alicia reflects that she hasn't used magic in a long time, thinking she lost her mana after reincarnation. But now she is surprised by its return. Alicia confirms that she specifically chose the destroyed border village to show the magnitude of the disaster and examines the extensive damage when asked about her plans. Alicia begins to use magic sprinkling golden dust from that moment on with just a wave of her hand. The people who were suffering wounds began to heal completely, the destroyed buildings are restored and return to their original appearance, the food crisis disappears and there is enough food for everyone. Moreover, there is even more food for all the villagers. The village enchanted is amazed by what is happening. And the Duke, confused, says that this is impossible. Alicia's magic blinds everyone and someone asks if she is a god. Alicia teleports back to the palace with the Duke and they ask her where she has been. She confidently reports that she has completed all the restoration work in the border areas. The advisors are amazed and cannot believe that the recovery happened so quickly. After the end of the war, one of the aristocrats demands that the Duke confirm if this is true. The Duke confirms that indeed everything was restored in an instant. He explains that Her Highness simply raised her hand, and before their eyes the destroyed buildings returned to their previous appearance and there was abundant food. Alicia thinks to herself, what a fuss is being made over such a small thing. She calmly informs them that she does not expect recognition for this small example. Alicia says with a smile that the most interesting is yet to come and advises everyone to wait. Isabella is shocked by what she sees, which is understandable in such a situation. The next scene takes us 9 years back to a majestic castle in the middle of a thunderstorm. The little princess, who was supposed to be surrounded by blessings, begins her destiny immediately after birth. After the death of her mother, the girl suffered abandonment by her father and remained under Isabella's care with the knight's castle as a backdrop. It is shown how the empire was filled with the people's outrage. Isabella wonders what crime such a small and innocent girl like her mistress could have committed. She hoped Alicia would not feel alone. She hoped that Alicia would not feel alone and promised to always be there. Being part of her family, having lived alongside His Highness for 9 years, Isabella thought she knew her better than anyone. But in the young woman's recent gaze, she felt something new. Isabella admits she had never seen Alicia like that before and wonders if she is really the princess she knew. Since maybe Alicia has been hiding her power all this time, Alicia turns to Isabella and tells her she must be in shock and begins to explain what happened to her. Isabella invites Alicia to enjoy the beautiful weather. To distract herself a little, Isabella decides for herself that no matter what kind of person Her Highness is and promises to always be by her side while she lives. From that day on, everyone bows their heads to Alicia and the efforts to restore the imperial palace are carried out at full speed. My official imperial education began. I had to master all areas of knowledge at the same time. Since I had not studied these subjects before, for a normal child this would be unbearable, but for me it was not difficult at all. Zenet was appointed assistant to the emperor at the age of 17 and served him for 7 years, surviving under the rule of this emperor. Irate and meticulous and not losing his head is already an achievement. Senelit greets the heroine, addressing her as Her Highness, reports that he has been careful to ensure that the news of His Majesty's death does not leak. The heroine reflects that spreading rumors about the emperor's death will only bring trouble and agrees to avoid unnecessary complications. The heroes decide to postpone the funeral and discuss the arrival of a scientist named Devian. Devian Brooke, a noble mage and the heroine's mentor in the study of magic, welcomes her. The heroine teases Devian with a smile for finally arriving on time, and he responds indignantly. Devian assures that he always puts his heart into his lessons and begins today's. Devian brings a magical formula that not even scientists and mages can understand. The heroine says he doesn't even try to teach her but just wants to give her free answers. Devian is shocked and reacts very emotionally. He comments slyly that he knows her well, and that's why he prepared a copy of the formula in advance, which confirms his serious approach to classes. The heroine takes the scroll and begins to write while Devian watches enthusiastically during the conversation. The heroine points out that the emperor was very talented and one of the few swordmasters in the world, but even he died on the battlefield. Devian is not surprised that the emperor's death led the empire into chaos, and the heroine points out that she heard about the enemy's dark magic. During His Majesty's final battle against the enemy king, a huge explosion of dark magic was directed at him. A sudden and powerful explosion engulfed the area and nothing was left. When the dust settled, absolutely nothing remained where His Majesty had been. They sent out a search party, but found no trace of him, so they had to assume he was dead, no matter how skilled he was in swordsmanship. After all, he was just a human, and if his body and soul were completely consumed by dark magic, the chance of survival was practically zero. After the conversation, the heroine wishes good night, then goes to bed and remains lost in her thoughts. She feels a little guilty toward Isabella, but after declaring herself empress, she has a lot of work. She realizes it's already late and looks out the window, the silence of the night. The heroine reflects that it's too dangerous for a girl like her to walk through the palace at night, and it's also the perfect time for a kidnapping. At that moment, a bright magical portal appears in the room. The girl finds herself at night on a deserted street illuminated by a magical light. She decides to use a special magical method. Forming a magical light in her hands, the golden energy takes her to a suspicious house where there are strange people. The magical trail leads to the dark dungeons, confirming her suspicions. Several frightened children are sitting in an underground cage. She appears before the children with a golden glow, surprising them with her sudden appearance. One of the boys is stunned and calls the heroine Angel. She whispers to the children to be quiet and promises them to save them. The heroine sees 6 children in cages and suspects that the criminals might have kidnapped even more. The golden magic spreads throughout the dungeon, and the heroine wonders if these children will be used as slaves. The heroine notices the noise and reacts cautiously, and the kidnappers are surprised by the open doors. One of the kidnappers sees the girl and, stunned, asks how she got there. The girl uses magic and immobilizes the kidnappers with golden light ribbons. She tells the children to get out of their cages and asks if they want to go home. The children remain silent and admit they don't know how to get home magically. They find themselves outside where the light appears around them. The heroine points to a shining arrow and says that if they follow it, they will find the way home. The children walk toward the arrow with joy and relief, and the heroine says goodbye to them and wishes them to be careful on the way. She thoughtfully observes that this isn't even a bush and wonders why the villagers couldn't find these children. The council discusses the news that the princess has solved a series of child disappearances. The council debates the terrible truth about the kidnapped children found in the underground prison. One of the advisors angrily states that definitely there is someone more powerful behind the kidnappers. The marquis expresses joy over the princess's actions that allowed her to solve the problem. The advisor highlights that with the start of the war, the empire became unstable, but thanks to the princess, a ray of hope appeared. The council agrees that the princess's success demonstrates her independence and leadership qualities in the dungeon. The heroine accuses her kidnappers tied up of being involved in slave trafficking. One of the kidnappers denies his involvement and says he knows nothing. The heroine reminds them that she is giving them one last chance to tell the truth. Otherwise, she has other ways to find out. The kidnapper admits they kept silent out of fear that behind it all, there was an even crueler person. He warns the heroine, saying she doesn't know how cruel the woman leading this conspiracy is. One of the kidnappers dies under strange circumstances, and the heroine watches in shock what happens. She mentions his death and sarcastically calls it a trivial development of events. Dawn illuminates a quiet town where people start their day. Contemplating the changes after recent events, the heroine realizes that instead of children's laughter, there is still tension in the air. She dresses in a dark cloak, believing it will be easier to go unnoticed that way. A large casino at the end of the shopping district appears on the horizon and catches her attention. The heroine realizes that this casino is the site of an illegal auction, where slaves are traded among the crowd. She meets a mysterious stranger who apologizes for the inconvenience. Sensing a strong presence of dark magic, she immediately begins to suspect the intruders. She walks away coldly, thinking that what happens in the casino is no longer her problem. At the casino entrance, the guards demand a check for magical instruments. One of the visitors is scanned with magic, but to their surprise, no violations are found. The heroine enters calmly. Noticing that her magic cannot be detected, she consults the servants so that she can now participate in the auction. One of the guests present shows a golden ticket highlighting its value. The heroine asks one of the workers to show her the way and visibly makes him nervous, having confirmed the presence of the golden ticket. He assures it will take place immediately. She enters the main hall and is invited to enjoy the atmosphere. The focus is on an underground auction taking place in a luxurious casino hall. The heroine, with a mysterious smile, promises to enjoy what is happening. The heroine decides to take a look before the auction begins. She assumes that among the displayed items, there are things that were only available to the ducal family. She is surprised to discover that even royal relics are sold here. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the speaker reports that those who were supposed to prepare the children were captured by the imperial family. The red-haired woman notes that the empire's strength has been restored after the war, and suggests they relax because her younger brother has prepared something new today. The heroine realizes from her hiding place that the red-haired woman is behind all this. A buyer local is surprised at how the lady's younger brother manages to get such unique items every month. The woman laughs and dodges the question, and the heroine watches and watches as the purple potion passes by. The heroine realizes that the container contains a drug that only dark wizards can make. Called Kashanubal, she reflects that such a drug is rare because dark magic devours life and soul and is forbidden for people. The heroine reflects that even among dark wizards, only a first-class specialist can create a cloud house, and the auction is about to begin. She understands that the auction organizer's plan is much bigger than it seemed at first glance. A red-haired presenter appears on stage and greets the guests with warm words of thanks. The woman introduces herself as Kira, the host of this auction. The auction begins with the unveiling of the first lot, a ruby sculpture full of divine blessings. The heroine is surprised to recognize that the lot is the national treasure of the kingdom of Loret. It is illustrated that this object is the heart of the 12th bell, which is the pride of a small but sovereign kingdom. Far from an empire, she is shocked by the recklessness of the organizers, because putting a national treasure up for an illegal auction is madness. The host announces the start of the auction, and the room fills with excitement. The first bids are made 2,000 to 500 gold, and the participants begin to compete fiercely. The auction participants raise their paddles and place bids, one of which reaches 3,000 gold. Suddenly, there is a commotion in the auction room, and the people in the room ask worriedly what is happening. The auction host is confused and reports that there is a problem and asks the guests to remain in their seats. An unknown person with a glove picks up a piece of jewelry with a red stone, and a mysterious internal monologue is heard. The auctioneer speaks alarmedly about the theft of a national treasure and wonders who could be the culprit. The hooded girl asks who is in front of her holding the same jewel. The mysterious girl presents an official document and announces that she has arrived from the imperial palace to arrest the organizers of the illegal auction. The audience in the room is shocked by the girl's statement and wonders if it's already time to flee. The red-eyed girl warns that before they could leave freely, but now it is no longer possible. A magical seal with chains appears on stage, blocking the exit, and the guests scream in panic. The auctioneer indignantly asks how someone dares to hold an illegal auction on imperial territory. Someone mockingly tells the hooded girl, who looks like a brat and is pretending to be a court representative imperial. The man with the mustache accuses the heroine of forging documents and says he knows about the emperor's death. The man is outraged that someone is so stupid as to believe such a lie without fear of the imperial family. The girl explains that currently, there is no one in the imperial family who can place the imperial seal and gives clues about her origins. The man is amazed by her silver hair and the presenter is shocked. The girl notes with a smile how awkward the situation is. The presenter realizes that there is still someone in the empire who can place the imperial seal. A girl in a raincoat goes out into the hallway. After the incident, the maid happily hugs the girl and calls her Your Majesty and asks where she has been all this time. The heroine answers calmly that she simply broke into the black market and put things in order there. The maid excitedly calls the girl Your Highness and takes her hands. The heroine realizes that she has been feeling anxious lately. She asks what happened, and if someone is bothering the maid remembers how she has been serving her for 9 years and worries that she goes to dangerous places without protection. The heroine realizes they are talking about her and smiles. The maid asks that at least they let her know where the heroine will go. The girl promises to always inform about her plans. From now on, the maid happily accepts this promise and mentions that the advisor was looking for the heroine to discuss an important matter. The advisor greets the returning heroine and informs her that the ministers are waiting for her at the meeting, which surprises her. The heroine thinks that the ministers want to tell her something urgent, perhaps related to her coronation. She asks Counselor Senele if he will continue to follow her. The heroine observes that Senele has always followed her orders, but she is not sure of his true loyalty. She acknowledges that Senet is the emperor's man and decides to simply watch him for now. The advisor states that for the sake of the empire's security and peace, he has only one task. Senet kneels and swears to serve the son of the empire. The heroine admits with a smile that he has not disappointed her and entrusts him with the task. The man reports that one of the palace servants has been accepting money and leaking insider information. The heroine tells Senelet that he does not need to apologize for this. She reports that the rebel count has already been arrested and orders Senelet to find out who else took the money and did not keep quiet. The girl says she must now go to the ministers who are already waiting for her. The ministers greet Her Imperial Highness the Princess. She sits on the throne and asks what the ministers wanted to say. The minister says excitedly that he hopes to see a new sun rise over the empire and asks that she protect it. All the ministers bow before her and repeat their request for her to become the protector of the empire. The princess addresses the finance minister and asks if he is ready. She gives orders to prepare everything for the coronation. The maid combs the princess's hair and takes good care of her. The maid smiles and asks if Her Highness is tired. The princess's memories show how during the time the emperor protected her, everyone else turned their backs, but this maid was always there when she was a child. The heroine remembers that the maid Isabella was the only person who stayed with her. Isabella tells the heroine with a smile that she will always support her, and the heroine resolutely promises to become empress in the cold and lonely walls of the palace only. Isabella cared for her and helped her in difficult times. Isabella takes the heroine's hands and tells her that she always believed she was right. The maid asks to follow the chosen path and calls the heroine her only family. The heroine thanks Isabella with a warm smile. Isabella declares that if anyone dares to go against the heroine, she will be the first to defend her. Isabella announces that everything is ready and leads the heroine to the mirror with her coronation outfit. The heroine looks at her reflection and says she is ready to leave. On the day of the coronation, Isabella admires the new empress's outfit and admires its magnificence. Isabella smiles and hugs the heroine, showing her support and calm. Before the big day, the heroine calls Isabella, who immediately asks her with concern if everything is okay. The heroine smiles and thinks she is willing to do everything for Isabella's true happiness. Isabella thinks warmly that just being near her is happiness. After 9 long years of darkness, the heroine finally emerges into the light in the coronation hall. Everyone greets Her Imperial Highness as she advances ceremoniously. The girl climbs the steps to the altar, thinking that now they will call her empress, and today is that day they place a crown on her head, and she feels that she has finally become the new son of the empire, the first servant of God. Prepares to place the emperor's symbol on the new ruler. Suddenly, behind the heroine's gaze, a powerful explosion interrupts the ceremony. After the explosion in the coronation hall, one of those present regains consciousness among the rubble. A magical protective barrier appears around the main characters, saving them from destruction. The heroine reflects that an ordinary person cannot create such chaos. The inner voice of the unknown watches what happens and expresses surprise at another person's attempt to take the throne. A man in knight's armor with red eyes appears in front of the heroine. The man, whom everyone immediately recognizes, says with a serious face that he is now busy with what is happening before him. Those present in the hall are moved and fearfully call the man His Imperial Majesty. The heroine sarcastically compares in her thoughts the inconsistency of people's opinions and then wonders if this man is really her father. The girl says she sees the man for the first time, and that is why she does not recognize him. After which he looks at her intently. She officially identifies herself as Alicia de Rebecir, and his daughter, and the Emperor Knight orders her to be taken away. The girl notices mentally how unpleasant her father's character is observing his gestures. She accidentally drops the crown and says her thoughts out loud, then she is surprised to have said it aloud. The Emperor gets angry and points out that she has disobeyed the order, threatening her with his sword. The girl explains that she couldn't stand by while the empire was plunged into chaos. Despite the prohibitions, the Emperor asks if she is really so stupid that she is not afraid to die. She comments with a smile that her father is funny because if she had really wanted to execute her, the girl would have already done it. Look directly to her father, and she assures him that if she had wanted to, she would have already cut off his head. The counselors and ministers watch the confrontation, and the Emperor himself suggests that he abandon the throne and rest. The Emperor ironically comments that she really wants her head cut off. The girl calmly responds that she has no choice. If it is his will, it will happen today, but she will return tomorrow. The heroine sarcastically thinks about her return while the Emperor orders her to disappear from his sight. She wonders why her magic suddenly hesitated in the Emperor's presence. The Emperor accuses her of trying to seize the throne. Citing her disobedience to royal decrees, Isabella visits the heroine in her room and worries about her condition after the incident. Isabella observes that the heroine must be suffering because the Emperor is still her family. The heroine comforts the maid, telling her that nothing has changed in 9 years and that it's impossible to return to normal in one day. Isabella, smiling, offers to tell the heroine a story, a funny one, to distract her from her worries. The maid recalls the legend of the Witch of the Eternal Night, who lives on the moon and grants a wish on a full moon. Isabella assures the heroine that she shouldn't worry and that everything will be fine. The heroine is surprised by the maid's optimism and doesn't know how to react to it. Every time the full moon rises, the maiden prays for her lady and asks her to grant the princess the power to fulfill all she desires. The girl prays and asks for her wish to come true. The heroine thinks she needs someone like him. The white-haired girl thinks she had a dream, but can't remember it. The girl sits at the table worried and listens to Her Highness's direction. She says she almost remembers it but can't specify what it is, and the maid turns to her. The maid asks what she's thinking about and reminds her she needs to eat. The girl remembers the food. The maid asks if something happened or if she had a bad nightmare. The girl remains silent but thinks she should stop wasting time. On useless thoughts, the girl calls the maid by her name and she asks with a smile if the girl needs anything. Happily, she suggests taking a little walk and promises to treat her to something tasty. The maid is surprised and notes that the teleportation was amazing, and says she didn't feel any discomfort. The heroine explains that only novice mages experience unpleasant sensations. The maid is worried because she didn't take the money since she didn't plan to go out. The girl assures her she has some money. The maid is surprised and asks if this is related to her abilities, and the girl responds that it's nothing special. The girl says she took money from the imperial treasury as payment for the work. The girl turns to Isabella and asks if it's true that she spent 9 years alone in this palace. The heroine suggests that today they do whatever they want. The girl and the maid hold hands and leave together. 2 employees greet the new customers and announce that this is Glory Boutique. The girl proudly shows the golden coat of arms and Isabella is surprised. The boutique staff offers to take them to the room VIP. Isabella whispers to the girl what she just showed the staff. The girl explains that she showed the coat, Imperial, printed on her father's armor, and Isabella doubts if it can be used. An order appears to send the invoice to the Imperial Palace and deliver all purchases to the princess's palace. The manager summarizes the results and reports that part of the imperial treasure gold has mysteriously disappeared. It was also learned that the royal coat of arms had disappeared from someone's armor. The man with the document says the palace just received an invoice for luxury purchases. He confirms that everything is correct and is surprised at how the thief managed to get through 20 protective barriers in the treasure and left no trace when stealing the gold. The man says he will take care of the situation. He reports something important along with the maid. The emperor reports that the princess, Alicia, has asked to have tea with him, but he refuses. The maid comments that the princess will be disappointed. And someone talks about the flow of money. The manager looks worried at the empty chair and asks where His Majesty is. The emperor appears on the lawn among the trees. He observes that today the weather is wonderful. A girl with long blonde hair is having a picnic with tea and says she decided to do this instead of having tea. The emperor asks her with displeasure what she is doing. The girl feels embarrassed, realizing that sitting on the ground is uncomfortable for the emperor, and they give her a cloth so she can sit. The emperor and the girl sit at a table under an umbrella, and she asks if this is better. The emperor remains silent and then asks why she doesn't leave. The girl asks with interest what he means. The emperor says she could perfectly well leave and that nothing will change if she stays. The girl answers that she has nowhere to go because this is her home. The emperor wonders if she thought he might kill her. The girl says with a smile that her father has a bad sense of humor and that he himself doesn't believe that's possible. The emperor admits he doesn't stay out of a desire to live and that he doesn't expect any perverted love. The girl admits she is simply tired of living as if she were already dead and feels exhausted by the monotony of every day. The emperor says he doesn't want to keep living like a dead man as he has for the last 9 years. The girl says she never knew how many interesting things there were in this empire, and now that she discovered them, she doesn't want to go back. The emperor is irritated in his thoughts and the girl says it's better to get rid of her. She adds that she needs to leave. Before she becomes a problem, the girl can barely contain her magic due to her proximity to the emperor. And she repeats mentally that she has bored him. She remembers that the emperor should have killed her then, because now she herself will eliminate that fickle force. The counselor reports to the emperor that the empire has not held. To the emperor that the empire has not celebrated any debutante balls for 3 years. The advisor insists that they can't wait any longer and says there are young ladies who are already 16 years old but who have not yet been introduced to society. It is one of the most important events for the empire when the girls nobles are presented for the first time to society, and they usually make their debut at 16 years old. Due to the emperor's absence and the war in the east, the ball has not been held in the last 3 years. The emperor points out that the ball is an opportunity to formally present the princess to high society. The advisor thinks the war has just ended and the courtiers are already trying to please the emperor. The news of the princess's debutante ball causes surprise among those present in the hall. The main character, confused, repeats about the debutante ball. The maid explains that the ball will take place at the palace in 2 weeks. The girl asks if she has to attend, and the maid explains that since the ball is also dedicated to the empire's victory, she definitely must come. The maid adds that the emperor accepted the ball so that the entire empire would know about the princess, and the heroine is surprised by her father's actions. The maid worries that the emperor does not consider her needs. She worries that there is so much to do and regrets that they were notified at the last minute. The maid does not know where to start preparing the banquet or the dress. She remembers that the princess hasn't even learned to dance and, surprised, asks again about the ball. The princess naively imitates the dance steps, and the maid does not know where to start training. There are 14 days left until the ball, and 2 weeks of frantic preparation begin. The first task is to create a design and sew a dress and jewelry. Then come the etiquette lessons. Dance training is held every day. The princess is tired and suspects that the emperor organized all this on purpose. Countess Chanel, dance teacher, remembers that there is almost no time left and asks to focus. The teacher was worried about the lack of time, but praised the princess for her flawlessness, and the maid was sure that nothing was impossible for her princess. The teacher feels flattered and asks the princess if she has chosen a gentleman for the ball. The princess is surprised by the question about the gentleman, and they explain to her that normally a lady is accompanied by her father or a close relative. Those present decide that the princess's gentleman at the ball should be the emperor himself. Lying in bed, the princess realizes that she said that in the heat of the moment, because the emperor definitely will not dance with her. She sadly thinks she does not need that relationship. The princess wonders why she learned to dance if she has no partner. She feels disappointed and thinks she wasted her time. The heroine, lying at night, mentally addresses the White Night Witch with the request that she grant her a son like him. She says she only wants to see her son, and the witch's voice points out that this is another request. The girl dreams of starting a family, so that the emperor feels human emotions toward her and the child, so that they are happy together. She asks that her son be loved and hears that her wish will come true because the White Night Witch is all-powerful. The princess wakes up in the morning and can't remember what happened during the night, wondering what happened. The girl is surprised to feel as if she hadn't slept at all and notices her face is swollen. The maid Isabella enters the room excited and calls her. The princess runs to Isabella, who exclaims joyfully. She panics and asks if anything happened while she was sleeping. Isabella reports that the princess has been unconscious for almost 10 days and is in shock. The princess, in shock, asks again if she really slept for 10 days and asks the maid to clarify it for her. Isabella explains she was afraid for her health and thought the illness was incurable. The princess laughs with relief, happy to have woken up before the debutante ball. Isabella says health is more important than any ball sitting on the street. The maid asks again with concern if everything is okay with the princess, and she smiles confidently and says she feels fine. Debian runs happily down the path, and the heroine is surprised by his hurry. She asks what brought him here. Without warning, Debian justifies that he couldn't warn her because she was unconscious, and the princess agrees with him. The princess asks if he came just to make sure she was awake, and he answers no. Debian suggests visiting the magic tower someday. The princess is surprised by such haste, and Debian jokes, saying he will probably bother her to remove the magical seals, and that's why he categorically opposes it. He dramatically adjusts his glasses and asks if she is interested too. Deviant says all the wizards in the tower are his people because they serve the empire. The princess refuses, citing preparations for the ball, but Debian replies that he doesn't need it at all. Debian immediately points out that it would be fantastic if she took a look at the magic circle. The princess nods with a smile and says let's go. Debian takes her hand and they begin magical teleportation. They find themselves inside the Eastern Empire's magic tower. The princess meets someone in the tower who calls her Your Highness Princess. The wizards greet the guest joyfully. They are surprised by her visit and ask if she used teleportation magic. The wizards happily inform Debian that he was able to bring the princess, and he replies it was just a trip. The scientists discuss if the princess will try the magical formulas and receive a negative answer. Debian explains to his colleagues that Her Highness must be properly escorted. He asks the princess to be indulgent, and explains that here everyone is so absorbed in research that sometimes they forget themselves. The princess ironically comments that everyone in the tower is as strange as Debian, and he asks surprised why she thinks that. Debian is a little confused, and the princess listens to his story about the most interesting part of the tower. He says there are many different things here, and the princess asks if that is true. Debian says there are incredible scrolls hanging on the walls. All of them are teleportation scrolls for moving around the princess. points out that these scrolls are very complex, so their formulas must be kept on separate sheets. She is surprised that there are so many scrolls and notes that Debian seems pleased for a good reason. The girl's attention is drawn to a scroll particularly unusual and suspicious that apparently leads to the dragon's lair. Debian explains that the magical energy of the scroll covers a huge area, so they must keep it very carefully to avoid accidents, and asks if she has ever tried to get there, adding that no one has returned alive from the dragon's lair, so they don't dare to experiment with this scroll. The princess reasons that maybe during this time the creature has already fallen asleep and turned to stone. Then she dismisses it with a gesture and suggests forgetting that thought, immediately asking why they keep such a dangerous scroll and why they try to preserve it. We introduce Ravendray, a wizard from the Magic Tower who created a mysterious scroll. The princess wonders what the scroll is for and finds out it is used for magical research. Debian notices stains on Raven's robe and explains that he accidentally spilled juice. Debian suspects it is not just a stain but something unusual and begins to question Raven. Robin picks up a dangerous scroll and accidentally gets stuck on it. Debian panics and yells at Raven, asking why he grabbed the scroll. Raven sneezes and the scroll activates, transporting them to another location. They find themselves in the dragon's lair, which terrifies the wizards. One of the wizards screams in panic over the impending disaster and calls his mother for help. The princess looks around calmly while the others blame Raven for another disaster. One of the wizards notices with surprise that the princess is heading somewhere alone and calls her. The princess calmly announces they are returning and tells everyone to follow her. Debian assures those present that he will get them out alive. The wizards happily admire the princess's determination and thank her for their trust. The princess ventures into the dark hallway, lit by a faint light, and the wizards follow her attentively. Looking around, she warns that this place is full of traps and asks that only she follows inwardly. She remembers she has been here before reincarnation and knows the exit is through the door created by the dragon Debian. He is surprised by her composure and praises her agility, but the princess responds tersely that this place does not scare her. The princess comments that she knows this place, and Debian begins to suspect that she had already been there before. Suddenly, the princess grabs Debian by the neck and her gaze instills fear in those around her. The princess roughly throws Debian to one side to protect him from danger, and he screams in fear. Everyone reaches the marble dragon statue that stands in front of the lair's final door, and they note that it looks creepy. The princess asks everyone to step back, and she realizes that everything here remains. Just like in her past life, on the statue appears an inscription with the task of overcoming the fear of the dragon. Suddenly, a collapse begins. The wizards scream in panic that everything is falling apart. The princess realizes that it is not just the sound of a collapse but the awakening of a dragon statue. She realizes that in order to get out she needs to take the dragon's blow to open the way back. Everyone loses hope and only the princess remains the only person who can withstand the dragon's breath. The dragon statue shoots a powerful beam toward the princess and she faces the attack head on. Debian, completely surprised, runs to the princess and asks why she did that and why she didn't dodge it. The princess is surprised and the wizards are puzzled to know how she was able to withstand the dragon's breath even despite her royal blood. Debian is worried about her condition, asks if she is in pain and admits he was worried and doesn't understand why she decided to do such a thing. The maid reproachfully asks him not to do anything dangerous anymore, admits he won't be able to live in peace if he worries about her, and the princess explains to him that she simply did what was necessary to return. The princess calls Debian softly and then asks him to finally let her go, explaining that it's okay. Isabella finds them in the hallway and excitedly asks them where they disappeared so suddenly. Isabella asks if the princess is hurt and she replies that she is fine. Debian is simply too worried. Isabella asks Debian if everything is okay and he admits that everything is fine with Her Highness and that he was just nervous. The princess severely warns Debian not to say anything unnecessary in front of the maid, and he justifies himself saying he was referring to the magic tower. Isabella says she will bring something so the princess can fix herself up. The princess looks at Debian and asks if he wants to go to the debutante ball with her. Debian, smiling, says it is a great honor for him and extends his hand toward the princess. Offering to dance, he asks her if she understands that this is her first social event and an important debut, and if she is sure she wants to go with him. The princess asks if he is worried that this might make her lose the emperor's favor. Debian responds bluntly that he is not thinking about that at all, but that he is worried she might oppose his support at an important moment. Debian shares that society sees unrecognized wizards as outcasts and often called him crazy behind his back. He admits he is worried about his reputation and doesn't want her to suffer because of him, and the princess becomes thoughtful. The princess observes that even her father never worried about her as much as Debian. She assures Debian that for a long time now she has held the title of exiled princess and asks him not to pay attention to others' words and not to doubt. The princess tells him warmly smile that has chosen him as her knight. Debian shyly admits that he dances badly, and the princess happily leads him to the ballroom, convincing him that she doesn't care at all. The day of the debut arrives and the princess prepares for the dance, sitting in front of a mirror. The servants admire the heroine's appearance. They call her dazzling and compare her to a doll. Debian and Isabella are shocked by the princess's transformation and admit that she is magnificent. Isabella wonders how she managed to take over the royal carriage, and the princess explains that she had to make an effort to make sure everyone saw her. The princess thanks Isabella for her care and promises to return in the palace hall. They welcome her and ask her to go upstairs to attend the ball. The guests discuss rumors about the princess, her loneliness and inheritance, and guess the reasons for her debut. The emperor appears at the event and is received with great pomp. The princess greets the emperor with moderation. He notices that she does not announce her presence to the room. Officially announces the emperor's arrival, Roberto Robertis, and His Royal Highness Princess Alicia of Rebecir. The princess thinks she almost showed up at the debutante ball without a partner and almost became the laughingstock. She is glad the scientist accepted to accompany her, considering it a great success. Debian is nervous and says he didn't expect to meet the emperor so quickly, and admits he even started sweating from excitement. He reminds her that according to the rules of the ball, she must dance at least one dance. The princess nods with a smile and takes his hand. She assures her knight that they can handle it because he has been training. Debian enthusiastically promises to do his best. Suddenly the guests scream in fear, bewildered by the alarming sound. The guards with swords report an attack and order everyone to leave the hall immediately. A white-haired girl with a red ribbon yells at a brown-haired man to get the people out, looking worried. The white-haired girl, shouting indignantly, lifts the young woman lying on the ground by the hand, the girl near the destruction crouching. Calls not to panic and not to die in this situation. While inside the exquisite building, the girl looks up in amazement, wondering why this is happening. A masked attacker with a dagger attacks a girl who covers her face with her hands in fear. A man with a sword and a worried face looks at the sky with the building in the background. A battle unfolds in which a man in a black tailcoat fights swordsmen. Protecting those around him, a man with a sword and armor emerges from a building. Showing determination and readiness to fight, a man with a sword approaches the girl asking if she is okay. After which they both meet inside the destroyed room. A white-haired girl with red eyes is next to a blood-covered body surrounded by signs of destruction and chaos along the wall. In the shadow of a column with a trail of blood, a man with a sword is found, and someone wonders why he couldn't use his skills before. The blonde girl looks at Sirisipa and asks for his sword, stunning the knight with this demand. From above you can see a girl sitting on the floor struggling with her attempts to control her mana, fearing that if she fails now the consequences will be fatal. The girl grabs the sword firmly, instilling confidence in herself and repeating that everything will be fine if you believe in yourself. There is a bright flash of blue light, the fragments separate and a magical power is born. A powerful wave of ice spreads across the room, and snow patterns appear around the main character, hypnotizing the enemy. The girl walks calmly with a sword in her hand, and behind her lies an immobilized enemy bound with magical shackles. The girl wipes blood from her lip, thinking of the missing Debian. The wounded girl calls out to Debian, who is already unconscious. Barely touching the floor with her hand in a spacious room, Debian lies lifeless on the couch. A girl is beside him watching. The girl reflects that even the heir to the throne fled, and this man stayed alone to save the people. A glow golden appears over the man lying on the couch, and the girl approaches, preparing to use magic. The girl sits in a chair and complains that the imperial palace is plunged into chaos. Reflecting on the emperor's actions, a young man enters the room and addresses a girl who immediately asks him about his majesty. The girl and several adults gather around a large bed on which an unconscious man lies. Covered with a sheet, a close-up is shown of a man in a bed with reflections. On his critical condition after being hit by dark magic, the girl asks the doctor when the man will wake up, and he confused answers that they are still monitoring his condition. The doctor grabs the folder fearfully and explains that His Majesty is very exhausted due to the war. The girl looks at the doctor with a severe and intense gaze, her face covered in red shadows, creating one ATM of tension. She clarifies that, in other words, no one knows when the man will wake up. The servant falls to his knees before the angry girl, justifying himself by saying they are doing everything possible to restore His Majesty. The secretary whispers to the girl the news that Lady Kira has escaped. The young man reports that during the chaos, Lady Kira disappeared, and that if the emperor is absent for too long, the girl will have to take care of state affairs. The girl is worried and thoughtful, because if her father wakes up, he might think she is trying to take over his throne again. A blue-haired man worries about the dark circles under his eyes and remembers having run a business for 3 years. During the war, the girl, pressing the palm of her hand against her face, asks the man if he has found the epicenter of the explosion. It becomes clear that both the origin of the explosion, like the intruder's entry, comes from the palace's underground prison, and the attackers are connected to Kira. The woman appears against the dark background, continuing her investigation and recalling how someone entered the hallway passing security. The girl, with a mysterious half-smile, concludes that there is a rat in the palace. With cold determination, she orders that all involved be found, including Lady Kira and all the missing prisoners. A girl in a red dress lies on the sofa and thinks they are going to track Kira through the casino. The map shows confusing clues, and the voice points out that it's not clear which one is real. Kira cleverly confuses the investigation. The girl sighs on the sofa and admits aloud that she is very tired. She reasons that she doesn't really know who Lady Kira is, but everything that is happening clearly is not the work of 1 or 2 people. The heroine is perplexed, because she has to organize everything, and she even worries that if all the work is already done, the emperor might not like it. With a golden glow in the palm of her hand, the girl thinks that what worries her most now is the magic. She closely observes her bright magical powers and realizes she must find out what is happening with her magic. The 2 maids turn around, surprised, and begin to talk cautiously about something. The girl looks attentively through the door, putting a finger to her lips, and hears someone addressing her. The maid watches as the girl quietly approaches the unconscious man's bed. The girl reflects that her proximity to the emperor really prevents her from controlling the magic, and she can't even normally use her power. Comically, the maids comment on how incredible the princess is because she even talks to the unconscious emperor. The girl concludes that, as expected, it is not easy to find the emperor's weakness, but the magic is connected to him. One of the maids is surprised that the girl is already leaving, and the heroine, with her head bowed, heads toward the door. The emperor suddenly opens his eyes and addresses his interlocutor with the words, "Your Highness the Count," with blue hair reports to the emperor on the progress of the matter, mentioning the explosion at the princess's debut. The advisor reads the report and clarifies that Her Highness herself is personally leading the investigation, and that all the escaped prisoners have been captured. Kira is shown in a sinister context, and it is noted that her whereabouts are still unknown. The advisor concludes the report by saying that this is the end of the report and points out that at that moment the father and daughter really resemble each other. The emperor orders the investigation to continue exactly as ordered by Princess Shakira, dressed in a black cloak and with a malicious smile. She confidently emerges from the shadows surrounded by her people. She declares in front of a crimson flame background that the conquest of the Eastern Empire is only a matter of time. A girl in a green dress receives an elegant written invitation to Elizabeth Hurduf's tea party. The maid is delighted with the invitation and is convinced that the tea is a wonderful opportunity. The heroine thoughtfully asks who Elizabeth is. Hurduf, and she remembers that she is the Duke's daughter and is about the same age. The courtier recalls Isabel and confirms that she is the Duke's daughter, and the heroine reflects that she must take advantage of the opportunity to socialize. The maid enthusiastically suggests that after the debut, it is useful to communicate with her peers. The girl agrees to pass on the invitation and promises to come, which delights the maid. She smiles and proposes taking a walk through the rose garden to prepare the tea. Walking through the garden, the heroine and her maid admire the beauty of the flowers and are proud of the imperial garden. Holding hands carefully and discussing a possible meeting with Her Majesty, the girl is surprised and asks if Isabella is afraid of Her Majesty, and she murmurs an embarrassed response. Isabella admits she is afraid, and the girl jokes, saying that the emperor is no more frightening than a cat hissing, and assures that if they meet her father, they will simply greet him and move on. The heroine asks Isabella if she wants to know something interesting and begins to tell her the secrets of the garden. She informs that there is a magical teleportation circle hidden somewhere nearby, and Isabella listens surprised. Isabella responds with amazement that she had never heard of such a circle. The girl explains that her father created this magical circle, and a bright pattern appears on the path. The princess smiles and invites Isabella to try the magical circle together. Isabella, frightened, refuses with a series of phrases reminding her that the author of the circle is Her Majesty and that she wouldn't dare. The girl tells Isabella to stay and enjoy the garden while she quickly goes to check the circle, smiling. The heroine promises to only take a quick look at the circle, noting the excellent taste of its creator and drawing attention to the strange lines on the ground. The girl approaches the pavilion bright and steps on the activated magical circle, wondering surprised if he is there. She smiles in the sunny clearing, pleased with her discovery. A man sleeps under the rays of light from a tree, and the girl wonders why he chose that place to rest. She watches him carefully from behind the tree trunk and doubts that even with magical protection, the emperor could sleep so peacefully. Because he has not yet recovered, the girl mentally admits that at that moment the emperor does not seem scary at all. The heroine sits next to her father, who is still sleeping, and gently touches his face. She smiles happily and says naturally, "Hello, what a beautiful day, father." The emperor looks at his daughter confused and asks how she got there. The girl laughs and explains that it was not difficult for her. The father stands up next to his daughter and asks in astonishment what she is. The girl looks at the emperor and says she doesn't understand what he is talking about. The emperor asks her angrily not to pretend and insists that she will not leave until she answers his questions. The heroine turns to him and asks a question. With confusion in her eyes, the girl asks if he is the emperor. He responds coldly that he is not there for word games, and demands that she find out who he really is, the true heir or a mask. The girl remembers how she had to defend the palace. While the impostors caused chaos, she adds that she was the one who protected the people while the emperor did nothing. The girl wonders if a man who did not protect his people is worthy of being called emperor. The heroine reproaches emotionally her father for not being able to take care of himself and demands an explanation for why he lost consciousness. Tired of the dialogue, the girl says that since he does not want to communicate, she is leaving. The emperor watches a scene in a room where, with destruction as the backdrop, a girl appears in front of a low column at the bottom of the stairs, showing determination and readiness for action. Suddenly, flashes of purple energy appear around her, indicating a dark influence. The emperor notices a barrier of dark magic that begins to weaken him gradually, barely able to withstand the impact of the barrier, and looks down. Uttering the word curse with irritation on the street, a girl in a pink dress emerges from the palace under the sunlight. Accompanied by an attentive knight, another young woman greets her, thanks her for her visit, and invites her. The heroine recognizes her interlocutor as the same girl from the palace on her debut day. The girl offers her hand to the heroine, confirming her suspicions and openly initiating a dialogue. The scene ends with the young woman thanking her for saving her during the chaos. In the imperial palace, the girl remembers how the heroine fought the intruders using chain magic to protect the people of the empire. The visiting girl from the south sincerely admits that the heroine was probably also scared during the battle. The heroine shyly accepts that everything that happened was alarming. The girl from the south asks with delight how the heroine learned to use magic. The heroine explains that she never studied magic. The girl from the south is surprised and tries to understand how. In that case, the heroine managed to use magical abilities. The heroine explains that she simply trusted her instincts and accumulated experience. The girl from the south asks curiously what exactly her interlocutor's magic is capable of. The heroine smiles and offers to show a bit of her abilities. Together, they find themselves in the middle of a wide and silent stage, Where the saga enters a new magical plane like a dream, the girl confidently suggests continuing their path and making the most of the journey. She and her friend enter a city bustling full of people and colorful details. At the city bazaar, they approach a counter where the vendor greets them with a smile. A friend admires the exquisite dream catchers decorated with the moon and stars. The vendor explains that these souvenirs symbolize the witch of the White Night and make wishes come true. The girl feels a strange sensation when she sees dream catchers associated with a mysterious legend. The saleswoman notices her friend's interest and asks them their opinion about the legend. My friend enthusiastically admits that she loves this fairy tale and still makes wishes on it. A friend holds the ornament and shares plans to hang it next to her bed to make a wish. The heroine observes thoughtfully that the White Night Witch seems to hold something special inside herself. The heroine among the crowd thinks there are too many people and wonders if she should teleport out of there. The girl gets lost in the crowd and looks back, hearing someone call her my lady. Her friend in the blue dress cries out of fear, afraid she won't be able to return home in a dark alley. A friend is suddenly called by a sinister voice. An old man wrapped in a black cloak appears before her with a cane. The old man politely addresses her, inviting her to come closer. The girl timidly approaches and asks what he wants. The sorcerer shows her a shiny mirror and claims it suits her perfectly. The friend, hypnotized by the purple aura, whispers that the old man is right. The sorcerer smiles, saying the mirror is only worth 2 silver coins, and his darkened face shines in the reflection. Under the pouring rain, a hooded stranger hands a glowing orb to a white-haired girl. While her dark-haired companion watches cautiously and a sword slides out of the stranger's sleeve, the old man in the cloak screams horrified. Trying to stop what is happening, the white-haired girl releases a dazzling spell golden and sharply demands an explanation from her opponent. In a bright room while having tea, a dark-haired girl admits through tears that she was afraid she wouldn't see her parents again. The white-haired girl comforts her friend, gives her a piece of cake and assures her that everything is over. Bowing in gratitude, the brunette whispers about her eternal debt, and the savior shyly rejects the praise. The scene of her terrible spell appears in the heroine's memory, and she internally repeats the warning to the enemy. In a narrow alley, the hooded sorcerer flees in panic, shouting that he knows nothing. While the girls feel a surge of dark magic in the tea house, 2 maids whisper about why there are so many sorcerers in the empire. Sitting alone in the garden with her back to us, the white-haired girl listens thoughtfully to a distant conversation and anxiously realizes that the number of dark mages is growing rapidly. The dark-haired maid happily invites the white-haired lady to a dessert at the tea room table. The girls laugh and the dark-haired one gives a cake to her friend, receiving a silent thank you, looking at the cloudless sky between the houses. The heroine decides she will have to conduct a thorough investigation at dusk. The alarmed butler and his maids run to the door, calling the missing girls at the door, scolds the 2 young girls severely for disappearing, and forces everyone to search for them in the garden. The chief servant places a caring hand on the shoulder of the dark-haired girl and asks her if they have informed her father. An officer with epaulets approaches the door and solemnly greets the princess next to whom the girls are standing. The man introduces himself as Duke Herdef, bowing with his hand on his heart before the gathered servants. The white-haired and dark-haired girls awkwardly explain that they only wanted to take a walk to the sea and unnecessarily alarmed everyone. The surprised Duke asks again about the sea, and the white-haired girl clarifies that she took her friend to see it for the first time. The girl in the blue dress thanked the Duke with dignity for the wonderful day walking alongside him through the palace. The white-haired heroine says goodbye, a little shyly, hoping for a new meeting in front of a luxurious carriage. A servant helps the princess begin her journey. The white-haired heroine, standing under the rays of the setting sun, turns with slight sadness. The dark-haired girl happily takes the Duke's hand and leads him back to the palace. The heroine, lowering her head, admits internally that Isabella has become her only real family. Tenderly and hopefully thinks that this girl will be able to know true love and be happy inside the carriage. A servant asks the princess with concern if everything is all right. In a dark office, a man tells his boss that the princess is a magical monster and receives confirmation. The scarlet-haired woman smiles and points out that the emperor ignored his daughter for 9 years in a room with deep shadows. Someone holds an hourglass in their hand, thinking about the girl who recently began living outside the princess's palace. Cadel Reventris, king of the kingdom of Reventris, mockingly reflects on the emperor's stupidity for rejecting the princess for personal reasons. He calls for Cadel and suddenly is surprised to hear a familiar voice. Kiraseri Reventris, princess of the kingdom of Reventris and Cadel's older sister, appears at the door with the clinking of glasses. The brother is glad his sister is safe, and Kiraseri thanks him for the timely help of the knights. The sisters are chatting on a cozy balcony. Kiraseri notes that although the emperor survived the war, they still gained something and asks about the report. Cadel confirms he has received information about the contradictions between the emperor and the princess. Cadel also reports that the emperor has become extremely vulnerable to dark magic and that he could spread more darkness throughout the empire. Cadel, with a sarcastic smile, reasons that the emperor gave up his own daughter out of love for his deceased wife despite the princess's strength. Kirasari smiles and states that the separation between the emperor and the princess is to their benefit, since she can be used for their own purposes. Cadel and Kirasari raise their glasses, rejoicing because the empire of this will soon fall before the kingdom of Reventris. Behind the window, there is a feeling of anticipation, because it has been a long time since anything so interesting happened, and the interlocutors agree on that. The heroine, white as snow, lies in bed and complains of boredom. She invites Isabella to have some fun, but the maid is surprised that the princess has just returned from the sea. Isabella suggests reading her favorite books and places a stack of volumes on the table. The princess takes one of the books and suddenly decides to call the maid to go fishing. Isabella gets scared and refuses, saying that even looking at an image is scary and that catching something is too dangerous. The princess insists, assuring her she will be careful. But the maid categorically refuses, especially at the mention of the kraken. Sad and upset, the princess asks again if it is definitely not allowed, and the maid fears they might eat her, shining brilliantly against the golden background. The princess decides she will quickly go down on her own and will definitely be careful the calm surface of Lake Kraken. In the Western Empire shines under the sunlight, a white-haired girl arrives at the water and is amazed at how huge the lake is. The heroine activates magic, shining intensely with spirals. Golden under the sun's rays, a giant kraken with red eyes appears in the depths, and the girl wonders how to start hunting it. The monster suddenly rises out of the water while the heroine watches from the shore, and a water storm falls around her. The girl comments with a smile that it's convenient the kraken comes ashore. Looking at the tentacles rising from the water, the heroine decides that if she ties them together, she will be able to defeat the beast. Against her confidence, she uses magical chains to tie the kraken, believing that fishing will be easy. The huge tentacles are securely wrapped in golden chains as they emerge from the water one last time. The entire figure of the chained and angry kraken appears on the lake's surface, and sinister black streams swirl around it. The water begins to look strange, and from it emerge dark tentacles. A white-haired girl notices a huge head of a creature chained with golden chains. The girl is outraged because someone could poison an entire lake. A girl realizes there is a boy sitting alone under a tree in a sunny clearing. The boy looks ahead with surprise and fear on his face. The girl wonders how long the boy has been there and if he has anything to do with the kraken. A yellow-haired girl approaches the boy and starts a conversation. The boy gets scared and sees the huge head of the creature still chained in gold next to the girl. The girl says she no longer needs anything and thinks she can't bring Isabella a kraken soaked in poison. The boy thanks her for being saved. The girl tells the boy to stay away from the lake. She explains that it is unknown how many more krakens lurk in the depths. The boy listens carefully and replies that he understands. A bright golden magical glow appears in the house, attracting the maid's attention. The maid calls her lady fearfully. Upon seeing her silhouette blinded by magic, the maid helps the girl and reminds her of her promise. The girl justifies herself, saying that at least this time she warned where she was going, and confidently adds that there is no danger. She says that despite her strength, the maid must be taken with her wherever she goes. The maid says to the armed forces that if something happens outside their field of vision, she will be very worried. The girl agrees to take Isabella with her and asks where they will go. Now the young servant apologizes for the interruption and suggests going to Lake Rena in the kingdom of Riventris. The girl repeats the name of the lake, surprised, and wonders if she had had this servant before. The servant confirms it is a large lake with clear blue water where people come to picnic. The girl decisively agrees to go there. The group teleports and finds themselves on the shore of a beautiful lake. The servant admires the ease with which the teleportation magic was used. The girl realizes that, as expected, there is something interesting here. And the maid asks again, surprised. The girl in the yellow dress smiles happily and says that everything is fine. She happily says that fishing is fun and everyone admires her success. The servant watches in amazement that her skills are truly incredible. The servant admires the fact that Her Highness is a genius who can guess, and this turned out to be absolutely true, and the girl replies that nothing is impossible for her. The girl reflects on the honor of personally serving such a genius and says she trembles before her devotion. The servant asks if she can walk on water. The girl answers that on water it is as easy as on land. The girl with the fishing rod confirms that indeed she can walk on water, explaining that she just needs to levitate and take a step forward. The girl exclaims that she wants to see it, and someone below asks if she is sure. The girl asks if they really want to see her walk on water. The servant exclaims affirmatively. The servant asks how impressive it is to see the girl walking on water. The maid marvels that this is incredible, and the servant laughs and asks if she knew about this before. The maid looks surprised and asks him a brief question. A woman with red eyes is in the center of the magic circle. The servant approaches the girl and offers to visit the lake in the kingdom of Riventris. Adding an apology for his behavior, the girl notices the servant's accent and decides to play along to see how far it goes. She activates a spell defensive with a teleportation element that maintains control over movement. A woman surrounded by magical symbols notices the chaotic approach of the king of this kingdom. She warns that he will kill anyone who calls her attention again. The maid runs into the room shouting, saying that the imperial princess is now in Riventris. A man with blue hair and a surprised look says His Majesty and holds papers. A man in formal suit sitting at the table gives the order to summon the ministers, demonstrating the seriousness of the situation. The red-haired woman thinks the heroine turned out to be a normal girl. Despite her outward importance, the princess is compared to a bird that was caught in a golden cage and surrounded by chains. Immediately after arriving at Rivendell, the young man asks about the fate of the princess's nanny and receives the answer that she was sent back to the Empire to confirm the whereabouts of the princess. A woman with long red hair advises her companion to go to the girl who is about to wake up. A woman asks a man about the similarities between the princess and the emperor, receiving confirmation. The church representative says the princess used magic to appear older, but her aura is exactly the same as the emperor's. One of the sisters eagerly prepares to go see the captive, and the other promises to join later. The princess sits in the center of the magic circle on a chair with her head bowed and hands handcuffed. Under surveillance, the woman with a cold voice declares that she cannot stand the silver color of the captive's hair and feels disgust. The princess notices she has a magic seal blocking mana, and for now can only watch how events unfold. The woman leans toward the weakened princess and mockingly asks if she is awake. The princess angrily orders her to go away and questions the words of the little imperial. The woman notes the princess has a sharp tongue, but resistance is useless due to the special magic circle of Riventris. The princess defiantly asks if such a trick can stop her. The woman promises an epic show awaits her, and the princess herself is puzzled about what it will be. The princess thoughtfully reflects if the emperor of the Eastern Empire is really so heartless as to not save his only daughter. She believes she can't wait to see how her father will react upon discovering his daughter is captive. The woman notices the appearance of another lady and looks at her with surprise. The princess, upon seeing her, wonders puzzled why this woman is there. The woman with long red hair hands the magic sphere to her ally and tells her the message has already been sent to the emperor, and the princess realizes it is a recording sphere. The faces of the emperor and the advisor appear in the purple magic sphere, and someone orders to transmit a message. The woman greets the emperor through the magic sphere. Enjoying his reaction, she shows the emperor his captive daughter in a magic circle with a smile. Asking him about his feelings upon this sight, a woman with a knife declares today her intention to kill the imperial princess. Adds that if the emperor personally comes to save the girl, she can postpone the execution for one day. The woman with an evil smile asks if the emperor has enough determination to extend the time by at least one day. The magic orb suddenly shatters with a bright flash. The princess is surprised when she realizes that the emperor has just broken the connection, leaving everyone in shock. The red-haired woman says with a smile that her father doesn't feel an ounce of love for his daughter. The girl hears cruel words telling her that now, without magic and abandoned by her father, she will have to decide her own fate. The woman confirms with a smile that indeed the girl is abandoned. A powerful explosion occurs that changes the course of events. The princess emerges from a cloud of smoke and says she didn't see anything funny. She crosses the room with a somber face and asks sarcastically if her enemy is having fun now. The enemy calls the princess a monster even greater than the emperor himself. The woman explains that those who seem closest are the ones who betray the most. She questions if the princess considers the emperor part of her family, reminding her they are only related by blood. The enemy asks what the princess will do next. Watching her in the dust in the background, the emperor appears, and the idea arises to abandon him if he shows indifference toward her. The woman offers the princess to become one of theirs and accept the enemy's kingdom. The princess indignantly asks what nonsense her opponent is talking about. The red-haired woman asks sarcastically if the princess thinks she will remain loyal to her father who abandoned her. She promises to bring a nanny and adds that a nanny is a true family for a princess. The woman states she only needs one thing for the princess to become her source of power at the right moment. The emperor is puzzled because the magical veil has collapsed on its own. The emperor's advisor tries to understand in his thoughts what plans Cadell Riventris is making. The council meets in the throne room, and someone proposes to gather an army immediately. But his interlocutor fears a new war after the recent end of the last one. One of those gathered states that the situation is complicated and that the kidnapping of the princess amounts to a declaration of war by Riventris. There is fear that if Riventris uses dark magic, the empire's victory is not guaranteed. The emperor shouts the name Senetlet, and the advisor confirms he is hearing his order. A man with grey and crimson eyes sternly orders his subordinate to gather an army. In a huge, almost empty banquet hall, two red-haired aristocrats are having breakfast at a long table. A white-haired princess wearing a black patterned dress confidently enters the hall. The red-haired lady smiles slightly and gestures for the princess to sit down. Seated on the contrary, the princess looks irritably at her annoying interlocutors with arms crossed and a frown. The princess asks if they are relatives. In a comedic insert, the brother and sister cheerfully confirm their relationship, and the princess laughs inwardly at their patheticness. The princess accuses the man coldly redhead organizing the attack at the debutante ball and the illegal auction. The man smiles and confesses shamelessly boasting about her knowledge of dark magic. The woman redhead furiously bangs the cutlery on the table, unleashing a furious explosion of energy. The princess jumps and asks with a dark threat in her voice if they are joking now. The brother, agitated, sinks sadly into a chair before the severe order of his sister. The woman explains in a tone calm that the attack at her debut was a necessary measure and that her brother saved her life. The princess narrows her eyes and notices that her interlocutor is suspiciously happy under such circumstances, smiling. The redhead responds that she has every reason to be happy. She lists her blessings: a reliable younger brother at breakfast and a new ally in the family. Looking at the princess laughs and says it seems she will have to hold the other side alone. Wondering whether to continue, the vision reveals a spinning vial of poison, Kaihanol, and outstretched hands symbolizing the spread of the potion and the black mages throughout the empire. The next flashback shows the red-haired woman in front of a crowd at an auction. Underground slave auction, while the princess demands an explanation, tilting her head and pressing her hand against her chest. The redhead apologizes, assuring she did not intend to sow chaos in the empire. The lady redhead swears something like that will never happen again. The princess, realizing the close connection between Riventris and the Eastern Empire, asks, demanding what is wanted from her. The boastful brother, crossing his arms, promises to reveal the plans once preparations are complete. The preparations smiling, the princess agrees to wait and see what happens. Meanwhile, the maid dressed in black and white dives into the depths, horrified at the idea that she has perished. In the darkness of the water approaches the ghostly image of the girl, and swears not to die for the sake of her queen. Losing consciousness, closes her eyes and mentally apologizes for having disappointed Her Majesty. A woman with brown hair suddenly wakes up in bed. Shouting Isabella's name, the princess leans over her and asks, worried, if Isabella was having a nightmare. Isabella, moved, runs to embrace her empress in tears, calling Her Majesty. Isabella looks at the princess with concern. Asking if she is hurt and if everything is okay, the princess smiles broadly and assures the maid she is fine. Sitting on the bed, Isabella looks around and asks, confused, where they are startled by the revelation. She hears the answer that this is the kingdom of Riventris and that they will have to stay there. The princess kindly offers Isabella the chance to return to the empire if she wishes. Isabella grabs her hands tightly and declares she cannot leave her mistress. Alone in enemy territory with a sincere smile, Isabella says she has nothing to fear by the princess's side and asks him not to worry. In a comedic interlude, Isabella admits that the rumors about the sorcerer king of Rivendreth worry her a little. The miniature princess cheerfully responds that there is no need to worry, and adds with a carefree sparkle that in the worst case they will simply kill the king. The two advisors anxiously discuss the impossibility of mobilizing an army and acknowledge the strength of the princess's kidnappers. The majestic man with a stone face declares that he is willing to risk his entire army to succeed, but that he will go alone to the Rivendreth palace. A young man with blue hair and glasses addresses the monarch. With concern, the elderly advisor suddenly stands up from the table and declares indignantly that another march by the emperor is unacceptable. The stern monarch orders everyone to be prepared. The departure will take place at dawn. A look full of anger hints that all that unpleasant feeling is caused by the blatant provocations of the king. A white-haired girl sits in a mystical circle thinking that she will not wait with folded hands. In the castle hallway, a maid solemnly rolls tea on a cart. The chamberlain accepts the tea offered by the maid and confidently says he will take care of the rest himself. An elegant hand with a cup presents the drink with the phrase, "Your Majesty, your tea." The emperor drinks tea calmly and gives the order to dismiss the ministers. While the advisor asks to reconsider the decision about the war, suddenly the emperor begins to cough up blood and looks at his hand in horror. The chamberlain runs to him in panic and orders him to call the court doctor immediately. The wine glass emits a pleasant aroma, and the white-haired girl watches irritably that in the mornings she always sees the same faces. A red-haired young man with a glass announces that preparations are finished. He explains that he is preparing to use the princess's power and that the day has come when she must choose a side. The woman red-haired adds that the princess's role in this matter is of utmost importance. The angry princess demands to be spoken to directly and not to beat around the bush. A bottle of purple potion appears before her, and they ask the princess if she knows what it is. She responds, "3 Kashanubel." The redhead confirms that the potion is often used as a drug, but in some cases it becomes a deadly poison. The red-haired girl with a grim smile admits that she was the one who gave it to Casanueva, the emperor. It is explained that someone who has already been exposed to dark magic can die from internal damage. After taking this potion, it is illustrated that dark magic destroys not only the body but also the soul, and the long-term influence leaves irreparable damage. The emperor, who barely survived his last battle against dark magic, is now in a critical condition. The princess sarcastically asks if the emperor really drank poison out of stupidity. They explain to her that everything was carefully prepared by spies who infiltrated the palace and that it took a long time. The red-haired woman asks Cadell to tell her the rest of the plan. It turns out that a long time ago in the emperor's chambers, a circle was drawn, magical for teleportation. The emperor is unconscious, and the narrator warns that they have little time. The hero, with a mysterious smile, says the princess will only have to do one thing when the emperor is teleported. She will have to finish him off. The princess asks indignantly if they are asking her to commit a crime against her own father. The young, red-haired man reminds her that her father never showed her anything but hatred. Isabella runs in seized by panic and begs the princess not to do that. The woman red-haired responds coldly that now they are speaking with the princess. Isabella insists through tears that no matter what the dispute is, a father is always a father, and warns that a throne acquired with the blood of relatives will not bring peace. The interlocutor advises Isabella to follow her lady. Since she has chosen that path, Isabella is firm that she will not allow this to happen under any circumstances. She warns severely that they shouldn't even dare to dream of using Her Highness's power for such purposes. Isabella tries to take the princess away, but the girl firmly refuses, saying Her Highness no. In the darkness, the young, red-haired man disdainfully calls this audacity scandalous because Isabella is only the princess's nanny. Isabella is already unconscious on the floor, fallen from the blow. The princess is surprised to realize that Isabella has just been hit. The red-haired boy says with a smile that he did it because of her arrogance. The princess clenches her fist and magical energy begins to manifest around her. She declares angrily that until now she has behaved decently, but now everyone will have to see her true power. The princess shouts that touching Isabella was their fatal mistake and unleashes elemental force. The young red-haired man and the woman were thrown aside by a powerful explosion of magic. The woman, breathless, asks, horrified, to wait for her, but cannot withstand the attack. A powerful explosion occurs that destroys everything around and raises clouds of fire. The princess finds herself in front of the lifeless bodies of her enemies with her hair waving against the chaos. Alicia bows before Isabella, reclining under the rays of light coming through the high window. A golden magical ribbon wraps around Isabella's cheek, which is gently touched by a hand. Alicia smiles softly at the flickering light of the spell and asks Isabella to return. The father sits on the edge of the bed, covers his face with his hand, and furiously scolds Kettle for being an infiltrated spy. Suddenly, his bare foot lands in the center of the flaming magic circle. He comes to his senses. Tied on the cold stone floor of a dungeon with a sword lying nearby, the prisoner looks up and suspiciously at the girl in front of him, realizing that this is not a palace prison, whispers Alicia's name in surprise. Trying to make out a silhouette in the shadows, the girl calmly comments that if she were a normal girl, she would already be dead. The king warns her that her current actions could be considered treason. The white-haired girl says that if she was going to be rejected as useless, then her life should have been cut short at birth. A man and a girl in a dress embrace, and the girl realizes she understands the bitterness and anger of losing a loved one, but that doesn't mean she is to blame. The girl clenches her fist, begging the king to say something. She remembers that he never wanted to have a child. The girl admits she didn't expect her father's love, and didn't even expect it at all. She confirms he is right, and an inner voice asks if she has never had the desire to love. The girl attacks the man and he screams in fear. The heroine with burning eyes admits she still hoped, even if just a little, for love. A girl with a sword threatens a man sitting in front of her. She says she heard his answer quite clearly, looking down and holding her sword tightly. The man calmly looks at the sword pointed at him and says this is also a good outcome. The girl, in tears, raises her hands and asks him to disappear from her sight. Amid the festive atmosphere, someone announces that the wedding ceremony has already begun. The parade presents Emperor Robert of Rebecir and Empress Cecil Bronio. The crowd congratulates the emperor and wishes prosperity to the empire, and the emperor and empress look at each other lovingly. The emperor tenderly kisses the empress in front of the audience. The emperor covers Cecil's eyes with the palms of his hands, promising her a surprise, and she is surprised and calls him by his name. The emperor tells Cecil she can now open her eyes. Cecil asks admiringly what he wanted to show her, and Robel answers yes. They show a beautiful tree for which it took a long time to create this beauty. The girl looks at the magical tree with surprise and excitement as she recognizes it. Cecil thanks Robel and happily hugs him. The doctor reports that the empress is infertile and notes her physical weakness. Robel turns to Cecil. She calmly responds that this happens and that everything is fine. Cecil tells Robel with pity that she feels sorry for him, but he asks her not to say that. Robel takes Cecil's hand and says that as long as she is with him, he doesn't need an heir. Cecil, alone on the ground, begs to be allowed to have a child and asks the White Witch of the Night to see her own child. The blue-haired girl covering her ears hears a strange sound and admits